Today I'm going to demonstrate a proper FMCSA or annual inspection, but first I'm going to cover a few details. ABS is required on equipment manufactured after March of 1998, and automatic slack adjusters are required on equipment manufactured after October of 1994. To find the manufacture date, locate the VIN plate, usually on the side of the chassis, by the legs. We go by the original manufacture date, not the remanufactured date, if the equipment was refurbished. When you describe the location of a component, it will be as if you are in the driver's side seat, so left side will be the driver's side or curb side, and the right side will be the passenger side or road side. Always complete the inspection in the same order to create a consistent process so you don't miss anything. We start at the front of the chassis. The unit number and the IEP marking are required on all four sides. This white reflective material is not required on the front of the chassis. We check our glad hands, make sure they're secure. We check our glad hand seals, make sure that they're not cut or missing, and that the glad hands are oriented at the 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock position. We do this to prevent any debris from falling into the glad hand. We don't want them oriented at the 11 o'clock position because as the driver makes a right hand turn, the glad hand will come unlocked. Check our 7-way lid, that the spring is working. We also check the bottom of the lid that this prong is here. This prong holds the 7-way cable into the 7-way. We hook up our glad hands. Our red glad hand is our emergency glad hand. This is what releases the brakes. And the blue glad hand is the service side glad hand. This is what stops the chassis. It goes to the foot pedal inside of the truck. Now we release the brakes. We do that now so the brakes are fully released by the time we get to the back of the chassis. We work our way over to the left front push pin. Check the latch, make sure that it works properly, that the pin unlocks. At this point we would grease the push pin. If it does have a grease cert, you are required to use it. Usually the access for the grease cert is a hole cut out here to access the grease cert on the housing itself. This push pin does not have a grease cert, so we would grease the back side with it fully unlocked, then we would lock it, grease the other side of the push pin, and then work the pin back and forth to get the grease inside the housing. Reflectors are required on all four corners. We have our marker light is lit up. It is not a reflective light. If it's not a reflective light, you do need the reflector. If you do have a reflective light, the reflector is not necessary. Like this light is a reflective light. Has a reflector, but it's not necessary because the light is reflective. We work our way around the bolster. We're going to check our gussets, make sure that there's no cracked welds. Check where our gooseneck mates to the bolster, that there are no cracked welds. Check our air lines. Make sure they are not damaged. Our wiring harness, they're all secure so they cannot be smashed on the frame. Check our grid area, all of the grid area cross members. Check our kingpin, look for any damages. We also check our kingpin plate. This is your kingpin plate, and this is the mating surface where the fifth wheel rides. A lot of times on older chassis, you will have rust underneath the cross member in the grid area, and it will cause this metal to become very thin and start to dish out. If you don't have a smooth mating surface for the fifth wheel plate to the kingpin plate, the fifth wheel plate will need to be replaced. Also, check this area for cracks. A lot of times these are overlooked, but they will crack in this area where the kingpin is welded to the gooseneck. Check for reflective material. Reflective material is required to cover 50% of the total length of the chassis. So with this being a 53-foot chassis, it's required to have 27 feet of reflective material. Check our leg. Make sure we have a crank handle holder. It is required. Make sure you don't have any broken welds or loose bolts. The welds looks good. Check all our bolts. I like to touch the bolts because a lot of times it's hard to tell if they're loose, and if you touch them, you surely would know. Everything's good, and we'll kick our cross brace. You'll be able to hear if it's loose. and make sure that our crank handle actually locks into the crank handle holder. Now we're going to crank the legs in high and low gear to make sure it functions properly. Remember, if you can't crank the legs when the chassis is bare, it's going to be impossible for the driver to crank the legs when it's loaded. Everything's working properly. Now you would grease your leg and the two grease certs here and here. Check your timing bar, make sure all your bolts are tight. And the timing bar is in here, it's connected. Everything looks good all the way down. And here's your VIN plate. We'll pull the registration and we'll match the VIN plate to the registration, and also we'll match the registration to the license plate in the back. Continue to work our way down. We're going to check this side of the frame as we're walking and the inside of the other side of the frame because they're easily visible. Check for any damages on the cross members. Everything's looking pretty good. We have our GPS installed in the correct place. Continue to work our way down the chassis, checking for any damages. We see our marker light is working. We're going to check our air hose spring, our air hoses, and our wire harness. Make sure that it's all secured. This will be the ABS power cable. Everything looks good. We come over to our tires. We check for any wear spots below 2/32, any slid flat spots, cuts, or dry rotting. You also want to check on the very bottom. As far as you can see, not sure why, but most of the time slid flat spots end up on the very bottom. Tires look good. After you check both sets of tires, you're going to look on the inside, check your hubcap for any missing bolts or any leaks. Check your lug nuts and studs, make sure that they're all tight and that you have access to your valve stem on the inside tire. A lot of times there will only be 2 holes in these rims, not the 5 that you see here, and if they're not lined up properly, you won't be able to access the air. If they're not lined up properly, you won't be able to access the valve stem on the inside tire. Also, on Dayton style rims, you want to check where your hub bolts to your drum. Again, your valve cap or your hubcap, check your bolts, make sure that they're not missing or loose and that there's no leaks. This one is leaking pretty bad. It will need to be addressed. Check your studs and your cleats and your lug nuts. Make sure they're all secure. Also, these wheel stops are required. If they're missing or worn off, they do need to be replaced. After you've checked your tires on this side, at this point I would get the 4-hose octopus and connect it to all 4 wheels with the regulator, and I would start airing these tires. So by the time I get through with the work, these tires are completely aired. When I start my paperwork, I can start airing up the other side, and by the time I'm done with my paperwork, all the tires will be fully aired to the 100 psi required. Now let's go under the chassis. Once we get under the chassis, we check our slider handle, make sure that it is not bent, that the bracket, the slider handle bracket is not broken or bent, and that it is connected securely to the arm. Check our hoses for hose separators. See here, these hoses are rubbing. They will need a hose separator put in place. And you see you have hose loom. Hose loom should be used in places where they are going to rub inevitably. There are 3 grease certs per wheel. You have one on the slack adjuster, one on the inner S-cam bushing, and one on the outer S-cam bushing. It's going to be the same on every wheel. You're going to check your brakes, look for any cracks, make sure it's not worn below a 1/4 inch. If you see this line here, this line is the 1/4 inch line, so once it's worn down to that point, it needs to be replaced. We check the wheel seal, make sure that we don't see any leaks. Check our suspension, make sure that we have no cracks or missing leaves in our leaf spring. Usually it'll crack right here. Check our radius rod for any loose bolts or any damage. Sounds good. Check our brake chamber. A lot of times you'll have rust holes here or here and they get overlooked. So if you see rust holes here or here, the brake chamber will need to be replaced. Check your brake hoses. Make sure they've got hose separators and they're not rubbing. Anywhere they are subject to rubbing, we put loom to protect the hose. Check your ECU, make sure that it's secured. A lot of times on this specific chassis, these ECUs will be hanging off because the bolts were loose. There are 2 small air tanks required on a chassis or 1 large air tank. This chassis is equipped with 1 large air tank. If you ever see 1 small, it does need to have 2. You want to also check your spring kits, make sure that they are all in place, and your rollers. Sometimes these rollers will be missing or the springs will be missing. Also, on your slack adjusters, you want to check your jam nuts, make sure that they're secure and that these pins are secure. Sometimes these pins will be missing. Just want to double check that. After you've checked all of the components under the chassis, at this point you would go ahead and mark your push rod for brake stroke. The brakes are fully released. Then we would apply the brakes, and we would make our second mark for our brake stroke and measure between the 2 lines. That's going to be your push rod travel or brake stroke. Check your air tank, make sure it's tight, that all the valves are tight. While we're under here, we do have air going to both sides, the emergency and the service side. We do want to listen for air leaks. Everything sounds good, but you definitely want to check. Also, once you get to the back, you want to check the rear ID lights. Make sure you don't have any worn wires. A lot of times I see cut or damaged wires here. It's easy to overlook because if you're on top of the chassis or standing up, you can't really see here too good. So I do like to slide back on my creeper and just go ahead and check these wires and the bolts to the bumper, everything that I can see from back here or down here. And everything looks good. Check your mud flap bracket, make sure the mud flaps are secure, the bracket's secure, and it has the correct markings. We check our ABS. It did cycle, but the light did not come on or go off, so it will need to be addressed. We're going to check our marker lights and our tail lights. Marker lights are working. License plate light. Now we'll check our left turn signal. Brake lights. And our right turn signal. Check your twist lock. Again, this is not a reflective light, so it is required to have a reflector here at the furthest end of the bolster and on the side of the bolster. Lock latches. Make sure you leave it in the unlocked position. I'm going to go ahead and grease our grease cert. Sometimes people will grease here. It's not proper. When possible, you grease it here. Sometimes there is a box on it. If there is a box on the chassis, go ahead and grease it there. It's the only place that it can be greased. But if there is no box, make sure you use the grease cert. Reflective material is required to cover 100% of the back bolster where possible. You are not allowed to have white or amber reflective material within 3 inches of any red light, and you're not allowed to have red or white reflective material within 3 inches of any amber light. You have amber lights on the forward portion of the chassis and red lights on the back portion of the chassis. So you should not have any red lights facing forward or forward past the bolster. Go ahead and check your twist lock. Make sure that it locks. Grease your grease cert. You've got your reflectors here and here, and the light is working. Check your rail on the inside and on the outside here. Make sure your wiring harness doesn't have any damage. Your cross members have no cracks or breaks. Everything looks good. Check our mud flap and bracket. Make sure they're secured. After you inspect your tires, you can go ahead and start airing this side if the other side tires are fully aired at this point. I'm going to check our suspension, check our torque arm, check our equalizer. Continue to work our way down, checking the wire harness and the air lines. Make sure that they aren't cut or damaged and that the wire harness is secure. And you see we do have hose loom where it will rub for sure. Continue to just check our cross members, main rail. Our light is working. Keep working your way down. Everything looks good. Again, check your leg, bolts. Kick your cross brace. Grease your leg here and here. Check your skirts. Sometimes they are bolted on instead of welded on. You want to go ahead and check those bolts. Make sure everything is secure. Continue to check. You see our air lines, wire harness are secure. No damage. Everything looks good. We get up to our right front push pin. We check our reflector. Light is working. At this point, we're going to grease our push pin and work it in and out. Leave it in the unlocked position, because a lot of times when they load the box, they will break off this push pin handle or the safety latch. So the last thing we want is to do an inspection and then the equipment get put back on the out of service because it now has a damaged push pin or safety latch.